Well, if your ride's broke down and looking sad, got a clunker car that's just plain bad, don't you fret, don't you worry, don't you sass. Just bring it on down to Chad's Whiskey Gas. He's Chad, he's wild, he's got the speed, fixing up rust buckets, planting a new seed. In the Whiskey Gas garage, you know it's true. He'll get that old forgotten clunker feeling brand new.
Hey, welcome back to Whiskey Gas Garage. I'm Chad Scott, I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining us. Is back. All right, as you know, on the last episode where we had this, we actually we drove this. We finally got it started. It took forever. As you know, the solenoid was out in the starter. The starter wasn't engaging. It took forever to get the thing up and running. We're going to solve that problem today. You know, the more we look at it, the more we think Yugorumph. Because we know that we're going to graft a Yugo body onto this Triumph chassis. It's just going to happen. But we just don't know what we're going to name it yet. Is it Yugorumph? Is it Trigo? It's going to be a two-seater now. So maybe we call it a Tugo. Maybe we call it a WeGo. I am from Kentucky, and we might call it a YUGO. Whatever it is, we got to come up with a clever name for it, and I'm counting on you. So if you actually come up with a clever name for it, and we use that clever name on our decal that we're making, I'll Venmo you $50. Seems fair at $50 for, you know, coming up with a cool name. Kind of mixes Triumph and Yugo, and you know, if you suggest a piece of crap, maybe I won't send you $50. Maybe you should send me $50. In any case, today we've got some work to do. So new starter for this thing, a lot more compact, a lot smaller starter. Getting the old starter off this thing, painful. Just British motor car, painful. And let me tell you why it's painful. It's painful because you got to take the exhaust manifold off. So you got to pull the entire exhaust manifold off, which we did. Painful. Found out we always knew we had a little exhaust leak under there. You could hear it. One of the gaskets completely missing, wasn't there at all. So we've got to Permatex that up. Got to clean up the other gaskets. We got to bolt the other starter in place, and the starter has 3 holes, as it turns out, 3 bolts that hold it in place in the bell housing there. 2 of them, again, super easy to get to. One of them, you've got to be a contortionist, gymnast, gymkata. You got to. There's work involved, so we got to jack it up and get up underneath it and get that last bolt in place. And takes both hands and 3 extensions, and it's pain. It was pain to get out the old starter. It's going to be a pain to get this last bolt in, but we got the other 2 bolts in already off camera, because even on time lapse it took me all day to do this. And I've done these starters before, but I forgot what a pain they were. Haven't done one in years, and I don't want to do it again. So, but we are going to get this thing mechanically right. Before we graft the body on, we're going to get it mechanically right. And then we've got to come in and start cutting these down to the rub rails all the way through here on the tops, so we can get the fenders to fit. We're going to try to pull the fenders off the Yugo. The fenders do come off the Yugo independently of the unibody. So we're going to try to pull the fenders off and start fitting those in the hood and getting those cut in. So lots to do today. So you all hang in, hang out, and hang on, because here we go. All right, so what we got here is a little bit of a hot mess, which is fine. So as you can see right here, we had to take the old, let me get some light on it here. We had to take the old exhaust manifold completely off here. So to get to the starter, which is back there, we got a couple of the bolts started in that starter. And you can see right there, there's 2 of them are, again, super easy to get to. You can get to them from even top side. But once you got that starter, and this is the old starter here. So she was a big old girl, which, you know, that's just my type. She's a big old girl. She had a new solenoid on her, somebody put on her, but the starter itself just was not engaging. Solenoid seemed to work fine. Now the little critter that we put in there, just a little fella, just a tiny little starter. Technology's come a long way. This had actual Lucas numbers on it. So this was probably the original starter to the car. And then, of course, this is an aftermarket. Well, they're expensive. Let's get right down to it. And again, we pulled the gaskets off over there. We were able to rescue one or two of the gaskets, and the third one just didn't exist. So, I've been trying to figure out what's going on with the starter. I may end up pulling it apart just to see, sort of what the issue is at the windings. These are expensive. I'm going to probably have this one rebuilt, but I hooked her to the old battery there. And as you can see, she spins. Hear that? She spins, but she doesn't engage. So here, the gear is not popping out. Gear's not popping out to what would catch the flywheel. So now, occasionally she will. If I sit here and did this, for 30 reps, one of them she'll kick out and catch. But her tendency is not to do that. So something internal in here, some gear, some piece, something. We're going to figure it out. We're going to dig into it a little deeper to try to figure out exactly what's going on with that starter and maybe try to rebuild it on the channel, just so I've never rebuilt one, to be perfectly honest. And I may take it to somebody and have them rebuild it for us and then film them doing it. So maybe it gets done the right way. I don't know. So what we're going to do today, we got to get these. And the reason I'm wearing mittens, I don't usually wear mittens. I know you guys are like, why are you wearing your mittens? If you ever worked with these exhaust manifolds, it's filthy. Everything is filthy. Just everything from the headers to, where it bolts onto the block, everything is nasty. And then I've got to get up underneath it and I've got to squish around and get that last bolt in and try to get that. But, the whole idea behind this was that we get this engine in phenomenal shape. And, we heard it run last time. I haven't done anything with the starter because we haven't got all three bolts in. But we're going to try to get all three bolts in it and then test the starter. I don't think I'm going to have to pull that starter back out, so I'm going to go ahead and bolt up the exhaust manifold and get all that, get some Permatex on it where I don't have gaskets, and try to at least get the gaskets back on it where I do have them. Get them tightened up, put some anti-seize on the bolts, all the stuff you're supposed to do. We'll try to get that done today. And then, we've got to at some point get these rails cut down so we can start fitting the hood and start fitting some of the Yugo components on here before we start doing the big cuts on the Yugo. We got to get the micro cuts done on this. So we're going to start working on this a little bit, and then we'll get back with you in just a few minutes. All righty, let's see what we've got ourselves into here. So we had to jack her up and get underneath her to get that starter bolt in. We did get her pretty tight, but we got the old Permatex on here. Now, Permatex there's 787 varieties of Permatex. And they say you can use on these headers, I think Permatex Red is 650 degrees copper. I use Optimum Max Temp. And, I've used this in the past for gaskets. We only had to really make one gasket. I used a little bit of a skim to hold the other two gaskets in place that were actually there, and then we made the gasket that goes right there. Now, you want to cut your tip, down pretty low. You want to get it to where you've got like either, between 1/8 and 1/4, and you want to lay dimes just like you would if you were a welder. Now, can I lay dimes as a welder? Hell no. but that's the look you want to have. Not too much, not too little. It's less important on these exhaust gaskets than it is, like, say, the intake, where it's going to, peel off and suck down into the intake. And, you want to be a little more careful on these exhaust gaskets. And the old timers, and I was taught by an old timer how to do this. You put your Permatex on, and then you let it sit until it skims over before you put it on. Now that was the right way to do it. Permatex changed their formula some years back. That's not the way you do it anymore. You put your Permatex on, you lay it in there, you get it good and thick, you get it where you need it, and then you put your exhaust manifold on here, finger tight. So this one has 7 screws. So they're all 7 screws are in there. They're all finger tight, and you let those finger tight seals sit for about an hour. And you're thinking to yourself the same thing I thought. Well, what's the difference in doing that and let it skim for an hour outside? I don't know, but I went on the old Permatex YouTube page and I actually watched, because I knew there had been some changes. I haven't done one of these in a while. I knew there had been some changes to their formula. So, and this is good up to, I think, 750,000 degrees. No, minus 90 to 750. Minus 90 to 750. Check your temperature rating. There's no reason this exhaust manifold should get, up to that temp, but maybe it will. I don't know. I'm certainly not going to drive it that hard. And after all, seeing a Yugo go that fast might scare the normal people. Might scare the civilians. And I call the civilians the one who don't know how to work on cars. So we're going to let this dry for about an hour, and then we're going to come back. We're going to hand tighten it down. And the thing about this is it cures fully in 24 hours, but it cures to test in about an hour. So, it's kind of nice. We'll give it an hour. We'll let it dry. We'll come back. We'll tighten up these bolts a little, and then we'll test the starter, because we still haven't tested the starter. We know all 3 bolts are in. I've got the wires in the right place. Again, they're the only wires in the car are going to the starter and to our fan, up here, electric fan we put on it. And that's the entirety of the wiring system. Oh, and a hot wire to the coil, of course. So we've got those. We'll be back in just a few minutes. You all hang out, and hang on. I'll see you in an hour, and we'll see if she fires back up. And we're back. It's been an hour. We tightened up all the bolts on the 7 bolts on the exhaust manifold. The Permatex, according to the YouTube video we saw, we did it the right way, so it should be at least cured enough to the touch. You said it won't be perfect until 24 hours, but it should be cured for use, they say. Testing in just about an hour. We are going to hook up the old battery, hit the starter button, and just see what happens. See if we're on the right path here. So, all right, fuel pump is on. There's the water that goes down to heat the coil up. I guess the next thing is just hit the old button and give her a little gas. Remember, this took forever to get started before, because that starter just drug and drug and drug. Let's hope this new starter does its job. Dear 6-pound, 8-ounce, sweet baby Jesus, help this starter do its job. Amen. Here we go. Oh, that's a good sign. Kicked over the first time, starter hit, it's super quiet. And there she is. Started right up. No drag on the starter at all. Hit the first time. Disconnect the coil here. Make sure that wasn't an accident. Now I'm going to double check over here. Permatex all looks good. Of course, not a lot of heat coming out yet, and we're not going to run it long. Let's be fair. We want that Permatex to hold and last a while. So let's give her one more kick of the old starter here just to make sure. There she is. Sounds great. The exhaust leak that we had is gone here. There's a little rattle in the muffler. because we had to take that muffler down to get the exhaust manifold to drop. It was all one piece. And I've got to put some baling twine in there to pull that back up. Now I might do it right. Baling twine. All right. So that's working. It's doing what we had hoped it would do. So our new starter is definitely the right starter. It's doing new starter things. Fired up on every hit. It's super quiet up here now. So the exhaust leak that we did have at the manifold from the missing gasket, well, we've taken care of that problem clearly. And so that's just one less kind of thing that's happening. You know, we've really looked time and time again at how we're going to do some of these pieces, how we're going to graft a body of one car that was never meant to be a part of one car onto the chassis of another. And for those of you who've done chassis swaps, and I told you we've done a couple in our lifetime, they're painful. They can be really painful when you get down to the nitty gritty of, you know, where does stuff go and how's it going to fit. And you're going to have to build tabs and weld brackets. And guys, that's the nature of the beast. Whenever you're trying to do something that wasn't meant to be, and let's face it, this was never meant to be. The YUGO and the TRIUMPH were never meant to have this awkward love relationship where one wanted to be on top of the other. Okay. So, I got wires running everywhere. I did get me some gauges for this thing, some temporary gauges to put in it. I don't like idiot lights. The only thing that this had was idiot lights. The only thing the YUGO has is idiot lights. So we got some gauges, but I do want to graft. Just sit the hood on the thing here. Now this is the YUGO hood. Whoa! Almost knocked you over, didn't I? Well, Holden is not with me today, so we are flying solo. Let me get you back in focus here. So the YUGO hood, I mean, when you get right down to it, it's close. It's going to have to kick over here a little bit, and you know, we talked about the firewall and where the firewall would fall and all those kinds of pieces and parts, and you can see that the YUGO hood hits. You know, it's really close. You know, it's kind of got a slant here. So up here, I think we've got some width. You know, it's reasonably straight. Maybe come over this way just a little bit. And I'm trying to gap it about the same on both sides. So over here at the front, we've got, you know, there's an inch of gap between the pinch weld and about an inch of gap between the pinch weld on that side. So, you know, we've got, and then at the top, you know, we've got, you know, just over half an inch of gap at the top on that side. And about a half inch of gap here. Scoot it just a little bit. So as we center it, you know, these are the kinds of measurements you're going to have to do 6.5. These are the kind of measurements you're going to have to do 100 times to make sure you're close. 6.5. So you're going to, I mean, it's going to take tons and tons and tons of measurement. Because if you look right here, you can see what we've got going on. We've got an inch. Let me get you in here and get you a look where you can see a little bit closer. So, and the hood, it's not a terrible fit. For grafting a car on a car that was never meant to be together, it is, let's just say it's not a terrible fit. You know, the hood, if you look where the hood is compared to where the wheel, it actually looks pretty good. And it's not touching anything in the top, and that's important. You know, here to the where we have the pinch weld, you know, you're definitely looking at a hard inch. And then up here, you know, you're looking at a half inch. So we got a half inch of the way that's going to fold in, which means we're going to have to cut, and then here, another inch on this side. Again, about a 1/2 inch up here. We're going to have to shave this off and then fold this in. And the folding in part is where it gets fun, because it's going to be a hammer, and we just have to massage the metal. We have to massage the metal because this is what we're looking at here. So, these bolt on, and there's some good overlap here, which is good because we have plenty of material here. Between here, we have, we have 1.25 inches of material that we can work with on this, that we can kind of slide back and forth. So if we have 1.25 inches here, and we have 1.25 inches over here, we've got 2.5 inches essentially to play with, to wiggle it around, to make sure that we have enough left of the pieces and parts on the hood that everything connects in. So we will have to shave some of this down, but we'll be able to use some of the material actually off of the Yugo to make that work. So with the hood on here, again, we know we should be able to flatten once we cut this down here, and we're going to have to cut right along that rail. Once we get all of that and this material off, then we'll have to flatten this against those shock towers there. And once we flatten that down, that should give us the material that we need to set the Yugo fender on. Now, is it going to fit perfect? Oh, God, no. We're going to have to beat and bang and hammer and, chisel and weld, and there's going to be a lot of stuff to make this, the front clip fit. But all we can do is get close. Because, we contemplated, we've talked about, hey, we'll pull these fenders off. They do come off independently. The inner and outer fender of the Yugo here will come off on its own, and just set the fenders on, and then bury the body on top of it. But I'll be honest with you, the more I look at it, this is really, we can of course separate this, but this is glued in, aside from being screwed in. It's going to be a real pain in the backside to pop those off, try to set the fenders. It'd be much easier to set as one piece, to cut the entire car apart. I've got 7 guys. We're going to lift the whole body at one time. So, I'm talking about cutting this off right here on both sides, taking this down right here, cutting underneath, and again, making the body where we can lift it off all as one piece. Now, that being said, we'll strip out the shell, the seats, and none of that will come off with it. But the whole dash will come as one piece in here. The steering column will all come out as one piece. And the goal is to lift the whole car as one piece. And again, the whole inside's being cut out. So we'll cut at the floor lines, because the floor lines there have got to, we're going to have to take 2.5 inches off here, off the outside of that, back to this pinch weld. So all of this has to come out on both sides in order for us to make that body sit down on this frame the right way. So that's kind of a preview of what's to come. I think we'll go ahead and take off these rails on both sides. We know those have to go in order to get those to get that to sit on there in a way that that makes sense for the body, and to cut down on the width, because the overall width has got to be less. So the width, as you can see, it tapers as you go back, and that was it tapers from here to here by a 1/2 inch, and that's a 1/2 inch over, almost 3 feet that it tapers back. So we're going to have to get that settled the right way and get that cut in. And again, we will push this in. There's plenty of good metal there that we can cut, push it in, and then put some self-tappers or weld some of the supports back into place. So I think that's the next direction we're going to go. Y'all hang in, hang out, and hang on. All right, those come off like gas through a funnel or eggs through a hen. So we peeled off everything here up to where those pinch welds were on both sides. And I think the hood and the front end has every chance in the world of fitting. Widthwise, lengthwise, I think we could all get it to settle on here. I still got to take out that inner fender there. We should be able to use inner fenders off the Yugo. I've already chopped them off everywhere else, but I've got to get that one off. So just all the measurements tell me that the hood is going to fit. This is where we're getting into some issues right here on these rockers. I'm looking close. So, we've got this car, the Triumph TR7 is 10 inches wider at the outside of the rockers. So here, right there, 10 inches really wider than the Yugo. And which is not a problem for the Yugo because we can cut the Yugo out, and get every bit of it. But it will set, inside this panel here. We could set the Yugo would fit inside the tub of the TR7. Now, the challenge there is that we lose a ton of structural integrity on the TR7. So look, let's just back this off to the inside of the two rails. That's 53 on the inside, and we're inside the tub over there. And the width of the outside of the rockers is 53 on the Yugo. So essentially the Yugo will sit inside that frame here and this frame here. It will sit down inside there. Now, I'm trying to figure out, do I go ahead, because it's just got to provide, these rockers have got to provide structural integrity because it is a unibody and there's a frame. The frame comes to about here and stops till about here. And then there's a frame right here that goes into the back. You can see this here that crisscrosses through and holds up all your suspension and that kind of stuff. But there's a spot of about, I don't know, I'm going to say 24 inches right here where there's no frame underneath this car, which means these rockers have got to be the structural integrity. So my gut's telling me that we don't get too froggy and cut these yet. So if we can pull the body off of the Yugo in one piece, which we think we can, and we're going to take out all the steering mech here and all the bracing, and that's not going to be a big deal at all. We pull the steering mech out there, and then when we set the body, because there'll be no floor in the Yugo at all, because we have to allow for this. We're going to be using all the TR7 floor. We have to allow for the transmission tunnel and everything that the Yugo, of course, doesn't have. So I think we could set the entire body of the Yugo down inside these rockers, because again, if measurements are right, it'll set down inside these rockers. Then we simply weld the rockers from the inside of the Yugo, so the outside rockers of the Yugo to the inside rockers here. We weld those together, and then we shave it down after the body's on. That way we have the structural integrity of the welds from the Yugo rockers, the outer Yugo rockers, to the inner TR7 rockers, and then we cut away the outer rockers to match what would then be the, no, that doesn't work either, does it? Because then we have just these sort of outer rockers. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Now I have to think on it. It may have to sit up a little bit higher to get the doors to open and close on the Yugo. I don't know, guys. This one's going to be tough. What it may end up doing is the rockers of the Yugo may end up sitting right here. And I've got stuff stacked all around the Yugo tires for the old trailer. Get that out of the way. So imagine those rockers there on the bottom. And, normally you'd want that down here on the thing. And what we may have to do is just, cut these rockers completely out. And then once those rockers are completely out, set the Yugo body on it, just put it up on jack stands set the Yugo body on it. I don't think we're going to lose structural integrity. We won't be driving it, obviously, with the rockers off. So help me out here, Village. It takes a village to do a chassis swap. What would you guys do? You know, we know what we have to do. We know what's going to happen. Body's coming off there. Body's going on there. That's the bigger picture. We think we've got the front end completely trimmed down to take that Yugo hood, the Yugo front end. Remember, this thing was long. It was all the way out to here. You know, there was an extra 2 feet on the end of this. We chopped all that down so it would take the Yugo front end. We've got this motor. It sounded great earlier. We'll try it one more time before we call it a day. But give me your advice on these rockers there, Village. We got to figure this out. So we know we've got 53 inches wide. The bottom of the rockers is even more narrow than that. So it's probably closer to 50 inches on the rockers over there of the Yugo. And again, the interior 53 on this. So we may have to put some, we may have to weld in some heavy L across there to set that body on, or we take these rockers out completely. And if we take those rockers out now, that means we got to narrow this back here at the A-pillar. The A-pillar is a lot of strength, but there is an A-pillar in the, there's an A-pillar and a B-pillar in the doors here of the Yugo. And we'll end up welding onto both of those, and we'll make that structural once we get it in. But I think we're going to have to cut these rockers off first. So guys, chime in, tell me what you think here. Do we go ahead and cut these rockers now? Do we wait and get the body and see how much of the rockers we need to cut off? What's the next step here, guys? I know what I'm thinking, but like I said, it takes us all to make me look dumb. So let's try it one more time here just to make sure it wasn't an accident that it started the first time. Let's see here. There's the fuel pump. Where's the coil? I was really happy with the fact that it started up. The starter worked great. Let me find my button over here. Remember, we had no lag at all on the starter last time. It started right up. Oh, apparently I didn't have her quite on there. All right, so first push of the button, she's starting. So our starter's doing good things. This motor sounds great. I think we're going to have a really solid project with this. It's super quiet now that we've got that, we put a little Permatex into that gasket. It sounds really good. So I think we're on the right path here. Let me know what you think about those rockers and moving them over. I know you're not here, but jot down your questions. I'll give you any measurements and I'll take any advice I can get. So as far as all that goes, I think we're going to cut it right here and then wait to hear back from you guys and then try to take our next step. So y'all hang in, hang out, and hang on. We appreciate you coming out to the Whiskey Gas Garage.
Well, if your ride's broke down and looking sad, got a clunker car, it's just plain bad. Don't you fret, don't you worry, don't you sass. Just bring it on down to Chad's Whiskey Gas. He's Chad, he's wild, he's got the speed.